Chapter 1 of Man Points. Guess it's a bad setup, huh? Chapter 1 of Man Points. Hemingway would start off with some sort of description, maybe of a rock, or a tree, or some dust, or some good, honest green grass. Since I am nowhere near to being in Hemingway's class as a writer, or even in his class cognitively, or, for that matter, very Hemingway-esque in any manner, I can forego the natural description for a description of something far more significant. Pearson International Airport's restrooms. I visited several iterations of the aforementioned facilities while I waited for WestJet WS-30 to board for the first leg of my trip to Scotland, but my favorite by far was the big restroom in Terminal 3, which is located conveniently close to the food court shopping area. The proximity allows one to get something to eat, then take a quick dump before a duty-free shopping spree at the Chanel store, which is right around the corner. Taking a quick dump means you're going to be duty-free.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Let me pause this. That is all very nice. Convenient even. But there is inherent danger in locating public restrooms so close to duty-free boutiques. When the fragrances of Chanel parfum mix with the smells of greasy hamburgers and fluorescent orange and nacho cheese, which then commingle with international body odor, then interweave with the overwhelming admixture that wafted out of the big bathroom that afternoon, what you got was something so rank, so destructive, so violent. It was like the demon from Paranormal Activity. You never saw it, but his presence was undeniable. Several times during my Toronto layover, I witnessed a janitor work over the facilities only to have the work ravaged by a group of international travelers whose colons had seen better days. From all over the world, these humanoids converged on this tiny, tile-lined corner of real estate to do one thing: emit foul odors from hindquarters. And they did so with a proficiency, quite frankly, that boggled the mind. The putrid stench these despicable primates exuded brought to mind unwanted visions of flaring sphincters and flapping butt cheeks, sagging gluteal lobes slapping back and forth due to superpowered flatulence. Even standing somewhere in the shopping area or along the concourse, one couldn't keep the notion of sloppy sphincters rattling with the force of geysers and hurricanes from passing through the mind's eye. That afternoon alone, I witnessed several children lose all control while inhaling the atmosphere. Temper tantrums, outbursts, violent displays, all of which could be blamed on the noxious butt gas. If this bad behavior would have persisted a week or more, no doubt the behavior would acquire a name, something like Pearson International Misbehavior Syndrome. But all of us average people would call the afflicted buttheads, or something to that effect. Standing outside the facilities, I stared with trepidation at the entrance to the big bathroom in Terminal 3. 2 entry-level Pearson International security guards stood on either side of this open doorway to doom. Each held the collar of a fluorescent yellow safety vest above the nose as a makeshift gas mask. From above these fluorescent yellow coverings, they stared at me with dubious eyeballs. Here, in the front of the bathroom, the stink was so huge, normal respiration was impossible without some filtering apparatus, even if said apparatus happened to be cheap, porous, fluorescent fabric. And I was standing there, sans gas mask, clearly thinking of entering the stench unprotected. It was then I knew walking into this lavatory was a suicide mission. I gulped, but a strange thing happened when I did. My genetic legacy came rushing up from the unconscious into my pineal gland. Several filthy, fur-frizzled Anglo-Saxon men outfitted in the latest Neolithic fashions, bison hide knickers and rib-bone earrings, made an appearance in my imagination. Immediately, their appearance made me uneasy. The utter dirt and filth caked to their bodies spoke codexes of wisdom about my struggle, the fight for survival and territory, whereas my relatively clean appearance and easy life had me as a bit of a complainer. Not one word came from the mouths of my ancestors, but the glaring, piercing blue eyes were enough to persuade me to man up. The bathroom itself was lined with light blue tile. Along one side were stalls, and on the other side, urinals. Several of those urinals were accepting international urine, and all the stalls were occupied. There was Swedish gas, Israeli gas, English gas, Canadian gas, American gas, Kahanian gas, and gas from dozens and dozens of international buttholes. And those buttholes recklessly expelled nachos, processed burger and cheese, all filtered through alcoholically inflamed livers. Mouth breathing, I walked up to an open urinal, whipped out the sea monster, and began to tinkle. While I pissed, everyone was farting, just letting it rip. There was so much flatulence, it was like pissing in a wind tunnel. But I stood there, peeing bravely into the noxious atmosphere. And my relief came with a swelling sense of pride. I had conquered the wall of stink. I had confronted the ghastly, desolate butt stink of doom, and managed to accommodate my survival needs. My ancestors would be proud. I may not be a caveman, but I still faced the world I lived in and found myself capable. The guy next to me, a sheik of some sort, stood there in a green turban and silken cloak, also peeing. His eyes rotated wildly in their sockets as his body expelled a deeply amber-hued stream of urine. No doubt this man was borderline insane, with Pearson International Misbehavior Syndrome himself. "You American?" he asked. "Oui," I said. "You think you are affluent, don't you? Look at you just so arrogantly. Arrogantly? Pissing with such arrogance! How dare you piss like you own the world?" Damn it, I'll have to learn how to check my privilege. "Look at my falafel," the sheik said. "Look, my falafel will prove beyond all shadow of doubt I am richer than you." "Your falafel?" The guy leaned back and, while continuing to urinate, turned so that I got a good angle to view his junk, and he awaited my downward glance, a glance which I firmly refused to give him. The whites of his eyes were bloodshot, and his teeth shone a dull yellow in the center of his pie hole. He stared at me, glared at me actually. His eyes burned with Quranic intensity. They hinted at the jihad in his ventricles. Look, I will do something you would rather not have happen," he said. Clearly, this man was a butthead. "Just peek, and you shall see what I mean," he added when I still refused to give him what he wanted. Although I am not routinely in the habit of staring at penises other than my own, this guy had me curious. Why did he want me to check him out so bad? What did he have down there? A dick so big it needed its own passport? I don't know. I didn't know. Well, when I finally allowed to follow my curiosity, I allowed my gaze to slip south to the Mecca below his beltline. I understood what CP30 fan porn was all about. This sheik's penis, from the base all the way to the pointy, dribbling head, was pure, 100% unadulterated gold. The unit shimmered rawly in the fluorescent light cast from the overheads. It made the dehydrated yellow urine flowing from his urethral estuary of his bladder look as pure as the water from a Colorado mountain stream. You see, he said. Do you see? I did see. And I shook my head grievously back and forth. You see, there is one thing in the Middle East. There is this thing in the Middle East where affluent people gold plate stuff. Cars, toilets, vacuums, really anything. I've seen gold leaf toilet paper, but this guy took that tendency so far, he had gold plated his dick. I studied the golden unit critically and thoroughly, notating the flecks of vein and folds of flabby, slack, gold-plated skin. No doubt, his penis was worth more than my entire life. He was right. He was far richer than me. What do you think? He asked with his shoulders pushed proudly back. It is as I say, no, richer than you. Richer, yes, I said, but also way, way smaller. And then, being arrogant and privileged and an American, I walked away. His objections echoed around the big bathroom in Terminal 3, but got lost in the butt blast of our fellow travelmen. Not long after that, I plopped down in my seat on WestJet flight WS-30, right on schedule. It was going to be a long flight, but it was Saturday, so that helped. Thanks. Stay tuned. That was Chapter 1 of Man Points, my fictional travel memoir, because it's fictional because I can't remember everything that happened exactly how it happened, so I just kind of try to add a little bit here and there. And I call that ribbing for your pleasure. And that was Chapter 1. Chapter 2, forthcoming. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you continue listening to these wonderful stories of my travels. Thanks, tune in, yada, 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 stuff like that. Bye.